awesome bipeds, quadrupeds, and even the occasional dinosaurs. Welcome once again to my little corner of the internet known as the Den. To those of you who are new, my name is Little Wolf. As per usual, the cauldron is over the fire with water ready for coffee, tea, and newly dug up hot chocolate. Go ahead and take a seat by the fire, but please wipe your paws, claws, and shoes before entering. Tonight, I thought with it still being the Yule season, let's take a look at a tradition around this time of year. A classic tale of hating this time of year, being greedy, and disliking most of humanity. I am, of course, talking about A Christmas Carol. There are so many renditions of this tale, ranging from animation to live action to claymation and CGI. I have watched a few versions of this over the last few moons. A 1971 animated cartoon, a 1977 BBC adaptation, and a 1938 black and white copy of this. Each one has its good points and its bad points, but I thought I'd go with the 1977 adaptation. The atmosphere makes up for the little parts that it is lacking. So, before we dive into it, let's go for a quick overview. Let's consult the Oracle. Oracle, tell us about A Christmas Carol. It is the end of December, and professional miser Ebenezer Scrooge, played by Sir Michael Hordern, absolutely despises this time of year. He thinks Christmas is all humbug. He doesn't buy his nephew's talk of Christmas being a kind time. Thinks it's absolute madness his servant Bob Cratchit, played by Clive Marison, wants a day off and sends away collectors of donation for the poor penniless. It's also the time of year in which his companion, Jacob Marley, played by John Lee Monsieur, died 7 years ago. When he is all alone, he suddenly sees Marley again, in a door handle, in a tile, and the bells suddenly start ringing. Humbug, he thinks. But then Marley really appears to him and tells him he should change his life. He warns Scrooge that he will be haunted by 3 spirits. The Ghost of Christmas Past, played by Patricia Quinn. The Ghost of Christmas Present, played by Bernard Lee. And the Ghost of Christmas Future, played by Michael Mulcaster. And that is the basic overview of this story. But, would it be fun to just hear that? How about we go ahead and take a quick dive into it, and let's have some fun with this. Are you guys ready? Well, let's go. Okay, folks, here we go. Settle in and hold on to your butts, because now here comes the title screen for A Christmas Carol. And from there, we go into a scene where there's a dead body being put into a casket. This is Marley, and he's been dead now for 7 years. But this is him being buried. So let me introduce you again. Folks, this is Marley. Marley, this is the folks. And soon we come upon Scrooge's workplace, where we find Bob Cratchit hard at work, and it's freezing inside the workplace. Scrooge has a nice fire going, but he won't allow Bob Cratchit to even have more than one piece of coal inside of his fire. And Scrooge keeps the coal bin inside of his own office place so he can keep an eye on how much coal is used. And soon, a little bit after that, in comes Scrooge's nephew to try and wish him a Merry Christmas, and to try and invite him to his Christmas dinner, but Scrooge will have none of it. And this is where we get the famous line, "Bah, humbug." And he tries to tell him he has no reason to be so mad, so cranky, so morose, that he's rich enough that he should be merry on Christmas. And still Scrooge will have none of it, and keeps telling his nephew, "Good afternoon." And after a few tries, the nephew gives up and leaves. And on his way out, we meet two gentlemen who are going to come in and try and collect money for the poor, so that they can have food and drink and maybe some housing, some of the comfort necessities that most people get to have, but not the poor. And Scrooge again will have none of that, because he believes that the prison should be able to hold them, or the workhouses, or any place like that. And then Scrooge closes up the shop and says to his clerk that his clerk will probably want to have the next day off because it's Christmas. And he is not happy about that because he's going to have to pay a full day's work for a day when nobody works. And he goes to his own tavern that he goes to every night, and he eats his dinner there and walks home. As he gets to his place, which used to be Marley's place, there's a large knocker on the door, and as he goes to unlock the door, he sees Marley's face staring out at him, and it takes him aback for a moment. But then he goes inside, and while he's in there, he checks under the bed, under the table, in the closet, and in the bathroom, because he was spooked from seeing Marley's face. And Scrooge does have a cold, so he has to heat up some medicine. And as he's sitting there waiting for it to heat up, there's a bell that is hanging on the ceiling above him, and it slowly starts to ring, and then speeds up more and more until that's all that he can hear. And then there's a loud bang from downstairs, and he can hear chains being dragged across the floor, and up his stairs, and soon outside his door, and inside walks the ghost of a person he does not recognize, and he asks the spirit, "Who are you?" And he says, "I am your old partner, Marley." And he asks the spirit if he can sit down, and the spirit says yes. And Scrooge asks him what has been happening since he passed away. And the spirit tells him, "I have been wearing these chains that I have made for myself throughout my years as a businessman, and being very shrewd with money and my dealings with people. And this is going to be your fate too, if you do not change your ways." And Scrooge begs for forgiveness. And Marley tells him, "You will have a chance, and that you will be visited by 3 spirits. One will come at 12. One will come at 1 o'clock in the morning the next day. And then the following day, there will be another." And the first spirit to come as Scrooge is laying in his bed is the ghost of Christmas past. She wakes him up and brings him to the window where she begins to go to float. Scrooge is frightened because he is human, and she says to hold on to him, and he becomes a specter, almost like her. And they are whisked away to a place that Scrooge knew very well. It's a place he went to school. He knew all of the roads, and he knew where the school was. He knew where the church was, and he knew all of the children that were there. But a lot of them probably weren't there, because it was the holidays and they got to go home. And soon they go inside of his school, and inside sits a lone boy who has to stay there during the holidays. And Scrooge realizes that it's him. He's sitting down reading books instead of going home. And he realizes how much he misses that. And soon his sister Van walks in and surprises him and tells him that he's able to come home now. That Father will allow him to come home, and that Father is not so mean anymore. And Scrooge is very happy with that news, but also concerned because the schoolmaster doesn't know. And she informs him that a letter was sent and his bags were packed, and so it was time to go. And with that, the spirit brings him to another place. But this one, he is a little bit older and learning his trade. He has a boss named Fezziwig and his friend Dick, who he works with. And it's Christmas Eve yet again, and Fezziwig watches the clock. And as soon as 7 o'clock hits, he tells Ebenezer and Dick to stop working, because it's Christmas Eve, and who wants to work on Christmas Eve? What we should do is get ready for a party. Here, let's move these tables. Put them together. Hey, wait, no. Hey, lift with your knees. Don't drop me. Ooh, watch your back. Ooh. And the party goes nice and well, and there's lots of food and lots of drink. And the ghost of Christmas past wonders. You know, the boss had spent so much money to get that food and party going, and Scrooge had seemed to be happy at the memory of it. And Scrooge recalls it's because his boss had made it a fun time, and so he had forgotten what it was like to make it fun. And then the spirit whisks him away to another place where he's older yet again, and he is engaged to marry a woman named Belle. And she has overheard his dealings with people who owe him money, and how he will not bend at all and demands money. And so she decides that he has a new love instead of her, and it is greed. So she has decided to leave him. And the spirit then takes him to where she is with her new husband. And her husband has just come in and says that it's cold outside, and she brings him by the fire to warm his hands and his feet. And he informs her that he had seen a friend of hers that day, and she was wondering who, and he said, a rich friend. And she realizes he's talking of Scrooge, and asks, what did he say? He said nothing. I only walked by his shop and looked in his window, and that's all I saw. But you know, Scrooge now has what he wants, his business, and I have what I want, which is you. And Scrooge begs to be let go, and he begs the spirit to leave him be, and he finally wakes back up inside of his own bed. But outside of his curtains is a bright light, and he looks out, and here is the ghost of Christmas present. Whoa, wait, I'm not a present. Don't give me a Scrooge. I don't want to go to him just yet. He's still kind of mean and crotchety. Come on. And the spirit brings him to the house of his clerk, Bob Cratchit, where we have a familiar scene of seeing Bob Cratchit walk in with Tiny Tim on his shoulder. And there's a goose being cooked, and there's pudding, and there's mashed potatoes and everything else that you would want for a Christmas dinner. And he asks where his oldest daughter is, but they pretend that she wasn't able to make it for dinner, and she finally cannot wait anymore and comes out to surprise him. And they sit down to enjoy their feast. And oh man, look at that duck. I mean goose. It's a goose, right? Goose? Yeah. But they enjoy the meal, and everyone eats their fill. And soon they gather around the fireplace, and Bob Cratchit makes his toast to Ebenezer Scrooge for buying the feast that they are enjoying. But the wife does not like Scrooge at all because of how tight-fisted he is with money, and he knows that they need the help. But he won't lift a finger to help anybody but himself, and that Scrooge is probably having a very Merry Christmas indeed, and is going to have a very Happy New Year. But Bob still wants to wish him a Merry Christmas. And next, we are whisked away to Scrooge's nephew's house, where he's having his own party, the one that he invited Scrooge to come to, but Scrooge declined. And here they have about the same amount of food and drink, and they play games, and this one is called Yes or No. And the nephew says that he is an animal, and his guests have to ask him yes or no questions until they can guess what he is. And he says that he is a creature that growls, and is angry, and is mean, and something that everybody leaves alone. And finally, it is guessed that it is his uncle, Scrooge. And Scrooge looks in through the window with the spirit and sees all the fun and games that they are having, and he wishes that he could only stay just a little bit more. But the spirit says, no, my time is very close to being done. At midnight tonight, I shall be gone. And Scrooge notices that there is something underneath his coat, and he asks what it is. And the spirit pulls out 2 kids. Are those your kids? He asks. But the spirit says, no, these are the kids of mankind. One is named Want. One and the other is named Ignorance, and that you need to steer clear of both of them, especially ignorance, because it will bring doom. And with that, the spirit leaves, and the fog rolls in, and next there is a dark shadow that appears, and this has to be the ghost of Christmas yet to come. The spirit brings him to a tavern where 2 men are talking about a person who has passed away. And they ask, how has he passed away? And the other says, I do not know. I really don't care. As long as whatever he had doesn't catch. And Scrooge is very curious about who they are talking about. And then we get pulled over to a building where there's a man and a woman rifling through lots of things in the house, looking for things to take, so that they can bring it to their fencer and try and get some money for the goods that they find. And sitting on the bed is a body that lays under a sheet. And after a little while, they walk over and lift up the sheet and see what is under it. But the spirit whisks him away back to the house of Bob Cratchit. But this time, there is a spot that is empty. Tiny Tim is not there, and there's a crutch leaning against the wall. And Bob Cratchit walks into the house and is very sad, but he hugs his wife, he hugs his daughter, and he tells him how he ran into Scrooge's nephew. And his nephew says that he's sorry for his loss, and that he knows that his wife is a good wife, and that here is a card that has my address, and if you need anything at all to help, to just go ahead and give me a call. And Scrooge realizes what is happening, and that if he could do anything at all to help out Tiny Tim to live just a little bit longer, that he would. And he begs the spirit again, who was the body that was underneath the sheet? And the spirit whisks him away to the cemetery, and Scrooge walks his way through there to a tombstone, and leans down and wipes off the stone, and it revealed that it is his own stone. And he begs the spirit to know, are these things that will happen, or are they things that I can change? Because I swear to you I am a changed man. Please let me go back and try and live again. I will not be the same person I was before. And he goes to grab the spirit's leg, but instead he grabs his bedpost, and he realizes he's still alive. And he gets all excited, and he's jumping up and down and very happy. But he's not sure how much time has passed. He's not even really sure what day it is anymore. But he's just happy to be alive, and he really wants to help people out. And he opens up his window and he yells down to a boy, "What day is it?" And the boy answers that it's Christmas. And he tells the boy to go over to the man who's selling the big turkey inside the window and to buy it. And the boy runs off to go do that. And at that moment, Scrooge writes down the address of Bob Cratchit. And when the man comes with the bird, he pays for it and gives him the note with the address and tells him to send it there. And then Scrooge spruces himself up, and he walks down to his nephew's house and gently knocks on the door. And his nephew and his wife are wondering who are there. And his nephew opens the door and is surprised to see Scrooge there. And Scrooge says, "Yes, I am here for dinner that you invited me to. Can I come in?" And the nephew warmly greets him and gives him a hug and brings him inside. And they do have a very nice fine meal. And the next morning, Scrooge decides to go to work before Bob Cratchit will be there, because he knows that Bob will be just a little bit late. He sneaks inside and sits down and pretends to work, and he keeps an eye on the clock. And by 9:15, Bob does finally walk in. And Scrooge, pretending to be angry, tells Bob to come into the office. When Bob walks in there, Scrooge gets up and says that this shall not happen anymore. This cannot happen anymore. And he gets up and looks at him and says, "I'm going to give you a raise. And it's a very much needed raise and very overdue. And I want to take care of you and your family and your son. I want to care for you guys, and I want to take care of your son as if he's my own. And he invites him to have some punch that day and tells him to go home early. And so they're having dinner once again at Bob Cratchit's house. And here we have the immortal line, God bless us, everyone. And that's the end of this version of A Christmas Carol. And I really did like this version. The atmosphere really is good. And the people acting in it aren't that bad. So, it is a good story because it shows us how we need to change just a little bit for this time of year. And not to be so mean and cruel. And not just to be greedy and try and get things that we want. And to try and help people out. And that's really what this time of year should be about. Like I said before, we are all on one planet, and we have to live on it. So, I know that this is running just a little bit long, but let's have a little bit of fun. I want to consult the Oracle right now. What are some fun facts about this movie? Let's see here. It says, this short 1-hour version was shot entirely on video for television by the BBC and broadcasted in the UK on 2 occasions, Christmas Eve 1977 and 1979. Because of the proliferation of other versions, the BBC never made a full-length movie, and so this abridgment continues to live as their only color version and has been issued on VHS and DVD. That's actually really interesting. I wouldn't have thought that. The BBC usually makes so many good movies and good shows. The man who played Ebenezer Scrooge, Sir Michael Horgan, he also played Jacob Marley in A Christmas Carol in 1951 and 1971. So, the man who was haunted by his old partner played his partner in previous times. That is definitely a fun fact. And I hope you guys had fun with this tonight. I hope I didn't bore you. I hope you had a really good time. I had a good time doing this for you. And you know what? What are your favorite Christmas movies for this time of year? Go ahead and leave me a comment and let me know. What TV shows do you like? What movies do you like? Do you listen to any radio plays at all? That would be really fun to hear, and I would definitely take a look into most of them. I'm still trying to catch up on some of the email that I had before and catch up on some of those suggestions. And I want to make a shout out to my friend Skydiver Tanner, who, without him, it would be harder to record this. He sent me some very nice headphones, and they're wireless, and they have a little bit of a better mic, so I hope the recording is a little bit better. Thank you so much, Tanner, and you are awesome, and everybody should go check him out and subscribe. And everybody should still go check out the Four Beardsmen's new channel and subscribe to them. And with that, for now, I shall have to say goodnight, for my throat is getting tired, and I need to get something to drink and something to eat and take a pup nap. But, you know what? You guys are always welcome back here anytime. My cave is always open to you if you need an ear, or if you just need a place to rest. Come and warm up by the fire, have some coffee, have some tea, have some hot chocolate. Let's have a chat. Tell me your problems, tell me your joys, and as always, I love you guys so much. And without you guys watching, I wouldn't do this. And as I've always said before, bye-bye, you awesome bipeds, quadrupeds, and the occasional dinosaur. Ta-ta for now. Have a good night, good day, or even a good afternoon. And please, watch your step and be safe, be kind, and be nice.